So today's been a very hard time, but whenever there's a hard time, there's something fantastic. We've got our next guest already on the line, so I have to say I'm sorry about our second guest. There seem to be lots of technical issues this morning, but we have live in the studio our next guest. I'm going to introduce in a minute. In the meantime, just remember today.
Not too bad, Mary, not too bad.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you all here.
Yeah, you. I mean, you're doing what? By the way, that book. I think you wrote it for me, isn't it?
Molly Gumball.
George Fitzgerald, he's just an inspiration to a lot of writers. Apart from being a musician, he's art in person, isn't it? So George, welcome you to this platform. Thank you for taking the time to come and be with us and talk about your latest novel.
Thanks very much.
But before we go on to that, George, tell us what you've been doing since your last novel.
Well, the last novel, basically, I was on here, I think we were talking about The Secret Life of Ashley Brown, and we were talking about The Promise Maker, which is basically Frankie's story. The whole thing starts off with with Ashley Brown, beautiful Dublin girl, gets lost in London, really, falls into hard places and basically finds her way out. In the next book we find her, I'm just running through her story, next book we find her at a funeral in Glasnevin. And after the funeral, an old friend of hers, an old acquaintance, we could more or less say that, is a guy called Frankie. And they're sitting in what's now gone is the Addison Lodge pub. It's no longer there. And he then, basically through an email that he'd sent, basically Ashley, the book that he wrote, he reads the story. So basically in the Addison Lodge, we get the first telling of Frankie's tale, which is called The Promise Maker. And his tale is basically, he's born in New York in 1930, in the Lower East Side of New York, to a New York mother, basically. And he grows up there, he's about 5 in an Irish neighbourhood. And then he comes to Dublin in 1935 under the guise that the guy that's with him, Paddy Smith, is his father. But he's not. And he grows up in the tenement world, and he basically... he's a lost kid, really, but yeah, I've given him a bit of intelligence to outwit the rest of them because he's set among a right motley crew of villains, basically. And a lot of the reviews, like the Irish Times and the Irish Independent, on that particular book, did mention on quite a few occasions that the characters are very Dickensian. Now, with just to speed ahead, where we are now with Frankie's Little Miss Madser, that's the basic continuation to the book, The Promise Maker. With that book.
So, how did Molly J. Gumball come into this?
Well, Molly J. Gumball, that's a separate book altogether. That's the latest one. That's basically really what's going to be. It's an audio book, and also it'll eventually be a download book where you can download free. However, Molly J. Gumball came about because I wanted to just take a break from what I was doing and just go a different route and find this little character and find the innocence about this character. And also I think what I found with her was, I've said this previously, is that if anyone listens even to the audio, it's a very endearing story. The relationship she has with her sister, Rachel, and where they find themselves. They're two innocent children, really. Well, Molly's 16 years of age and Rachel's probably about 14, but they've lost their mother. And their mother is basically the central protagonist in their lives. She's a wonderful mother. She's originally from Galway. And the father, they're very estranged with the father. And the father is then now remarried to a woman called Liz Butts, who is basically the evil stepmother. But we don't go into great detail about her. But however, there's the underlying story, the backstory to the story, is that's what's taking place. And Molly gets taken in by Pippi, right? And a friend, or not a person, she just basically encounters on the North Circular Road, I think it is, outside the shop. And it's just basically a story of innocence, coming of age, a young woman, and to completely diverse from like most of my stories, like Ashley Brown, for example, not most of them, well, probably a lot of them. Ashley Brown is a beautiful blonde-headed Dublin girl. She's an artistic type of mind. She lives in this picture-perfect world, and she ends up in London, romantic notions, falls in drugs, gets involved in a guy called even Mr. Picador, and there's crime, there's problems, and blah, blah, blah. Frankie's tale is not unlike that, except it's in tenement world, and there's a lot of villains and thieves and blah, blah, blah. So just to like, in a sense, actors, they want to play different parts. So just like, in a sense, I wanted to play a different part or a different role or a different character to find where I can go with this little short story, really. And that's what was the inspiration of that. And I found the character and I found her voice. And like most stories for most writers, once you find the voice will tell the tale.
Now, I mean, I hear you very well, and I'm sure the listeners do as well. One of the issues there is that the two sisters had to deal with forgiveness.
Yeah.
Was it the purpose that you had to bring out forgiveness in a character?
Yeah.
Or did the characters just develop themselves into that?
No, as a story, I was looking for a very strong characterization within them, and where we could bring them to basically, I suppose, expose the issue of forgiveness in life and the absolute bondage that it actually has on a person. Unforgiveness is one of the greatest prisons you can go to, because it's so subtle, it's so justified in our human nature. Within our human nature, when people do anything wrong on us, we are very justified in being unforgiven in our own mind. It's very subtle, it's very deceptive, but it's extremely damaging. Extremely damaging. And the only way out of that prison, and it is a prison, and some people spend 20 years in it, and some people spend a lifetime in it.
Hold on. So that prison, you're saying forgiveness is a prison? Because from the character, as I was listening to the audio and going over it and over it again, is that the prison you're talking about? Because we think about prison, 4 walls, we're there, we're castrated because we've done something wrong, but you're saying another prison.
Yeah, see, unforgiveness is the prison, not forgiveness. Forgiveness is the way out. Forgiveness is the only way that opens that door.
Right.
There's no other way, and it only comes through a choice, where we make that choice to say, I forgive. And you've got to make that choice, because otherwise you're going to spend your life in a prison. And that prison, by the way, that prison of unforgiveness does not come by itself. Like in any, I suppose, given prison, we have a mental picture of a prison because we understand what prison is. We've seen, anyone that's seen films or television or people that have been to prison, basically we know that geographically it's a complete shift from the place where you once lived to a new place. When the judge sends you to prison, you're geographically going to a different place. You know, I have a great line in the book I wrote about a guy called Pitbull, and his mother said to him, or no, his grandmother said to him, the only person that's going to prison faster than you is the fella that's going to drive you there. Right? So, but yeah, like all things, it's a geographical shift. It's a geographical shift. And yet in the spirit realm, if you want to call it the soul, call it whatever it is, the subconscious, the mind, the experience of life, the unforgiveness doesn't come by itself. Once bitterness sets in, that's another story, and that's another monster. And that all comes through to one prism, which is unforgiveness. So with Molly, as a young child even, well, she's a teenager now, and her sister, I brought them to the place where they could experience the liberty of actual forgiveness. And it's a choice. It's a choice. And they made that choice, and they made a choice well, to forgive, to show also the reader, maybe a 16-year-old out there, or somebody who listens to the story, and to understand the importance of to get out of that prison. Because I myself have been in that prison. We've all been in those prisons. Loads of us, every one of us have experienced unforgiveness. We have to have, because it's human. It's part of our human experience, you know. And I understand it quite clearly how deceptive it is. It's very deceptive that we can justify ourselves so easily, and yet the fact of the matter is, it's doing us so much damage. And yet the person that we're on forgiveness towards doesn't even know it and doesn't even care.
I mean, like, their stepmother didn't care, did she?
No.
And the funny thing, that just listening to this story, I said, my God, you know, George, were you in my room?
Yeah.
And I think many people would say that because the characters are so, but they seem, like you said, both of these young, I advise people to go and listen to the audio, buy it, or do something with it, because they are justified.
Yeah.
And I think that is the thing that you brought out so strongly
Yeah.
as we get to know the character of the stepmother, which is not a main focus of the thing.
No.
Even the father, I was annoyed with him.
Yeah.
And but somehow, George, did you because when you're writing a fictional character, sometimes is from the author's own life and whatever he is. Is that what you is? Would we say that's something that you had experienced definitely, and you came out of it, and you wanted your character to come out of it?
No, I had no experience in that whatsoever.
Wow, fantastic! Tell us you're an angel.
Yeah, no experience in that sense of distance relationships like that. But I understood that the fact that. And this guy himself, like to investigate him, why is he the way he is, and why did he do what he did, and why did he sort of become basically self-centered, and why did he fall into that trap of adultery? Because he was involved in an affair, really, right, prior to the mother died. We don't go into that in too much detail, but that's, you can sort of read the backstory, that the underlying problem there. And why is he there? And why did he neglect what he was given? And why did he so easily fall into this trap? And that's something I might investigate somewhere down the line. But and the destruction of what that brought. Anything that's destructive brought into a home will do what it's intended to do, which is destroy. And if it's unforgiveness, it'll destroy. If it's bitterness, if it's resentments, anything, doesn't matter what it is. But once it comes into the human experience, it will do what it's set out to do. It will destroy. You cannot put a lid on it. It's too big. You can't put a lid on bitterness. You can't put a lid on. These things have to be exposed and brought out into the light. They have to be brought to the light. And the key, as I said previously, is for me, from my experience of life, and I'm 58 years of age and I have a lot of experiences, is that forgiveness is the only answer there in that particular area. And again, it's like everything else. Some people will have very trivial issues and absolutely make a murder case out of it. And some people...
Give us an example of that.
Well, some people will, like you could say to somebody, did you see Billy last week? Without giving names away. Did you see Billy last week? Would you stop? Don't talk to me about him. Well, you wouldn't look at that man. Why is that? He drove by me the other day, he never even waved. I got up there, I wouldn't be talking to him again. And see, that's so trivial. But then you have Nelson Mandela comes out of prison and forgives everybody.
Yeah,
and see,
after so many years.
He forgives everybody. Everyone. So you have a man now who's basically, his characterization, the character that's in the man, absolutely exposes who the man really is. A man of extreme character who has forgiven an awful lot. And not only has he forgiven an awful lot, it's not only to do with his personal life, but it's a whole history here. We're in that nation, and he walked out free and waved. There's a guy there that is the absolute epitome and the full manifestation of exactly what I'm saying. He was literally in that prison.
So he had a double prison, really, isn't he?
Yeah, he had a double prison, yeah.
Now, because the nature of your work, George, what I also found is that you have this amazing sense of humour.
Yeah.
Was that necessary? Because you'd be dealing with a really difficult part, but then again, I found myself laughing.
Yeah.
Was that your intention? I mean, or was it just the Irish part of you, because they're very humorous in things, and the deepest thing, they will bring some kind of humour. Why was that so essential to have? So it's not a gloom doom book. It's actually very refreshing.
No, it's. I think probably what for Irish people to say, it's probably more. Dublin people have their own sort of wit. There's a Dublin wit. And gallows humour. Where basically we laugh at someone's head falling off. I mean that in the most. Nicest possible way.
It's very hard for other people to understand, some of these humours.
Yeah, it's humour. But what I try to do is in the darkest of places, when I bring it into the really dark places, I'm either going to bring light in there or humour. Right? Because if it becomes too dark, it becomes depressing. And there's no hope. I have to bring hope. Hope has to come along. Because if hope doesn't come along, what is there? Without hope, what is there? Hope does not disappoint us. So if something's disappointing you, it's not hope. So I try to look for hope. Because I know from my own personal experience that I've gone through some very serious tough times and tough challenges myself in my own personal experience of life. And I know what it's like to be in that dark place. I know what it's like to be in that place that's sometimes it's just basically dreadful. Where is hope? But we've got to go look for hope. Hope doesn't knock your door. It doesn't come in just unexpected. Sometimes you got to go look for that and search for that and keep searching until you find it. And hold on to it, because hope does not disappoint. So basically, even with the book Molly Gumball, the short tale, the story, the audio book, what I tried to do is also try to engraft some wisdom from the book of Proverbs in there, so that also that truth is going in there, objective truth. I was talking to Michael McDonald. He wrote a book, My Week with Uncle Pat. And we were talking, and he was talking to me yesterday about objective truth, subjective truth. So subjective truth is basically, in a sense, I could say, well, that's definitely red for me, that colour there, 90. And you go, well, not really.
It's a bit orange.
Yeah, it's a bit. My truth is orange. Well, my truth is red. But the fact is that we're both sitting here today. That's an objective truth because it's fact. So truth is vitally important for any tale, for any story, and I always try to bring in that grain of truth that might possibly, hopefully, set someone free in some way. That's really the objective of really why I write, is to try and bring truth into someone's life at some point, hopefully. I'll tell a short tale. I wrote a book called Somebody Up There Likes Me Too years ago, 2005. It's basically an autobiography thing. I'm rewriting at the moment, but I've tipped off. It's a long story. It's called When We Lived in the Sky. I've changed loads of stories. But anyway, I was sitting on a bus one day, and there's an old man got in front of me, and he was sitting down right in front of me. I was sitting at the back, he was sitting in front. Now, when I say an old man, he's older than me, and I'm 58. That doesn't make him young. And he started telling me his tales and his woes in life, and I was sort of looking out the window, trying to give him the facial expressions that I'm not really interested in this moment in time, and dealing with my own stuff. But he wasn't having it, and he was continuing on the story. So I eventually submitted to the fact that he's not giving up, so I better surrender to his tale. So I did. So then he told me about a tragic event that took place in his life and how his wife became extremely depressed. And then he said he got a book one day, and the book really helped her and made her laugh, made her cry, and her friends read it, and it really helped her. And we were getting off the bus, and I just said, by the way, don't mind me asking you a question. He says, yeah. I said, what was the name of the book?
Wow.
And he says, my book called Somebody Up There Likes Me Too, by a guy called George Fitzgerald. And I just looked at him. I didn't.
You didn't disclose who you
were. No, because
you didn't disclose who you were. You just
it was his moment, not mine.
Right.
It was his moment. George. You know what I mean? So let him have his moment. There's no point taking that moment. I just said that fair play to you. And we both got off, and I best looked at it. Now, the point I'm making in that story is that only I met that guy, I wouldn't have known that. So here's the point I'm making. You don't know what you're doing when you're writing. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know how it's going to affect somebody. And the point is to affect them for the better. That's what Molly Gumball's about. That's even what Frankie's little Miss Madser, the Promise Maker, Ashley Brown, they're all about that. All those characters. I've sent them out into the world. Go into the world and make disciples of nations. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Go into the bedrooms. Go where I can't go. Do you know what I mean? They're my creation. So I sent them out. Go and bring this message that I've given you, because I'm your author. They don't know I'm an author. They've no idea that I even exist. But the reality is I do. And the thing about them is, even though they're fictional characters, there's nothing in their lives that's ever going to affect them, because I have them written into their story. And if it's not written into their story, nothing can happen to them. They might go through tough times. They might go through really hard times. But the thing about it is, what they don't really understand is the author, the creator, is watching everything. And I have their back. And they're not going to sink into the mire deeper than they can. I've got their back. And I'll cause them to walk on water if I have to. The fact of the matter is, they're my creation. And I've created them. And I'm sending them out into the world. Go into those places that I won't go. Do you know what I mean? And bring this message. That's really the whole point.
So you're not just you are an author, but but as an evangelist also, you're trying to get people to look at their situation and do something about it. With these characters, with the humour and everything. So, George, because you create these things for a purpose.
Yeah.
Dare I ask you, is it profitable?
Profitable in the sense of financial gain? Absolutely not. Right? The problem with financial gain is it's extremely difficult to actually obtain it. So why bother chase it? you're only going to find yourself chasing a balloon that keeps floating away from you. If it comes your way, fine, great, good. But however, in saying that, I'm not going chasing that. That's a balloon that floats away. Here's the reality. What I am chasing, what I'm looking for, is to affect a human being's life. And that's my reward. If somebody reads the book and says, you know what, really, for 1.5 hour, George, you changed my world.
So that meeting with that man on the bus, when you said it was his moment, and you got away as an author, it was like, wow, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Did you think it was obviously coincidental, maybe some greater God wanted you to know what the effect of these things are?
Yeah. Maybe because I was having a moment that I was actually on the bus that moment, that morning, and I was probably down and discouraged over the fact that where is this all going? You know, what is the point in this? This is a treadmill, an awful lot of work. We don't seem to be moving anywhere, you know, and like life. But the reality is that even with the I suppose the cliche or the idea of somebody might say to you, look, my life's like a treadmill. I keep doing an awful lot of work, but I don't seem to be going anywhere. I'll say, well, when you started on the treadmill, what weight were you? And now it actually has gone somewhere. It is doing something. You are being effective. It is being effective. Negativity is an absolute disastrous thing for the human mind. Because the human mind, we were not created to understand negativity. We were not created for disharmony. We were not created for all these things. That's like putting diesel into a petrol car and wondering why it's not moving. Do you know what I mean? We weren't created for them. So we've got to defend ourselves against them. Now, it's not an easy thing. These things are okay, they're wonderful saying it, but the practicalities of them all is another lesson that needs to be learned. Do you know what I mean? My personal journey now at this moment in time, I think the greatest gift, now I'm 58 years of age, I've been travelling along a long road, but one of the things I'm thinking of late is the greatest experience that the human being can have in life is the very fact if they can walk as a pure vessel. The pure vessel is the ultimate, absolute, I believe, put it this way, utopia for the human being. And everything outside of it is absolutely substandard or basically counterfeit, to try and counterfeit purity, because we are created as pure royal vessels. We were created as pure royal vessels to be on the earth administering the word of the king from the kingdom above. And that's who we are. We are basically, as Michael McDonald will say, every human being is an image bearer of an almighty God, because we are created in the image of God. And Michael actually said to me there last night, he says to me, and if you don't believe me, just look how a dog treats you. The dog sees something in you that you don't even see. What do you think God says? He created you. You know, and I don't write religious books. I stay away from the whole theme of religion. But what I do is I try to write parables. Michael Daly, the author of he's written a few books. He's written a couple of books. Michael, he's a broadcaster also. He actually said when he read The Secret Life of Ashley Brown and The Promise Maker, he said you've written parables, modern day parables, and that's basically the theme of what I do, to try and get the message out that I believe is very important. And it's basically, in a sense, a salvation message. That's the most important thing for the human experience.
Right. Listen, how can we get hold of this book? Number one, I'm going to ask you another question. How can we first of all get hold of this book?
Well, the Molly Gumball story, you can actually, what I've done with that is I've put that into an audiobook, and I found a great voice. I feel the great voice to tell the tale. And you can find that, you'll put that on YouTube, Molly J. Gumball, and it will come up, George Fitzgerald's Molly J. Gumball, and you can listen to the audio eventually, which will be probably the week after next. I'm dealing with Frankie's little Miss Madser at the moment, so that's gone, the last draft is going back to the printer, possibly next week, and so the week after that, you'll probably be able to download them on the internet at some point, free. So it'll be download free, so if you're going to get it for free, download it, have a read of it, and enjoy it. That's basically it. And I think with the Frankie's Little Miss Madser, the characterization in that is improving better. You have you've Mary Applejaws, you've Coswallop, you've Slasher, you've Whacker, you've Daisy May, you've Gickna, you've Hopper, you've Frankie, you've Rosie, who is basically Frankie's Little Miss Madser. She's that's who she is. She's Coswallop's daughter. She plays a little tiny cameo role in The Promise Maker, but in this book she comes out more so, and she's just a girl, that tenement girl that says the first thing that comes into her head. She doesn't think. She just, whatever's in her head, it's gonna come out of her mouth. There's no filter on her either.
And there are people like that as well. They have no filter.
Absolutely.
But just coming back to Molly J. Gumball. First of all, how did you name this character? Because it's such a the name itself is like, it's not Irish, is it, Gumball?
No, it's not. I think there is a Gumball out there. There's a children's thing. I found out afterwards. I looked up. There is a Molly, but it's not a Molly Gumball. It's something Gumball, all right. And I think it's a character, a cartoon. I didn't know. I just checked up out. I just come up with the name Molly Gumball, and then when Honey, she adds the name Jolly. She says from now on you're Molly Jolly. So she becomes Molly J. So it's Molly J. Gumball. So she becomes Molly J. Gumball. And even Honey. Like, see, Honey's coming from a Nigerian background. And but Dublin red. And but she's Pentecostal true and true. Right? And a lot of Nigerians will be very heavy Pentecostal. You know what I mean? And they have that whole, like, speaking tongues at the drop of a hat thing. You know what I mean?
I also love the way you brought that diversity. But the fact that the diversity, they were actually growing up. They've grown up in Ireland.
Yeah.
With the North Dublin accent and everything. And I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of life as well. And how, you could influence each other.
Absolutely.
You could become friends with people outside. So you treat that as well in a way that I wouldn't have expected that. I thought it was going to be an all Irish thing. And also suddenly this comes in. And I must admit, I admire that.
And Molly sees nothing. There's no prejudice in her eyes. She doesn't see it.
She's very innocent, isn't she?
Right, she doesn't see that. And Honey doesn't see it either, to a point. Do you know what I mean? Honey will obviously be aware of it. She grew up in Dublin. But the point is, there's none of that. That's not in this story. Because I didn't allow that in the story. That's not in the story. And these are people that just basically love each other on the basis of who they find themselves to be. Human beings.
I think it's important that authors can write that, whereby people can have a relationship because it's needful.
Yeah.
And they can respect and love each other for those reasons.
Yeah, and
that's what comes out very strongly there.
Absolutely, and not only that, what I did as I suppose against maybe other people's ideas or other people's thoughts, or my own personal ideas on this, is that Honey's as Dublin as everybody. She's as Dublin as Molly. She knows nothing else. She's just been born and reared basically in Dublin. She's as Dublin as anyone, and she's quite entitled to everything. She's Dublin, and there was nothing else coming into that story other than the fact that these were human beings that wanted to help one another as best they could, and and Honey's there for her, and she's the basic. She's the secret warrior in her background. Molly doesn't know that. She's a Pentecostal, born again, spirit-filled woman. She's the warrior in her background. She's the one who's on her knees. She's the one who's praying to God for Molly. Molly doesn't know that. She doesn't know,
It's fascinating, but listen, we've run out of time.
No problemo.
We've run out of time. But the thing is that we can get it on YouTube for the
Absolutely.
audio, and we're going to look forward to it. So congratulations.
Thanks very much, Mary.
Have a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for all your information.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mary. God bless. Bye. Bye.